Advantages, so here's an advantage. The fuel that does spill, it does evaporate quite quickly. So again, you just remember having that slide just before that. Bango, now I see what the answer is. And if again, you also noticed, I'm not telling you what the correct answer is yet. I'm just basically saying, what is it? You answer it. Now I'm going to see what your responses are. Disadvantages of this: can form an explosive atmosphere. Again, this is extremely dangerous. Most people don't think so. They think, oh my gosh, I see it sold in Walmart, must be safe. My gosh, it's extremely dangerous. Requires priming. That's a big negative for a lot of situations, because if it's too cool, so forth, priming, you may find that your stove's not working. And then also must insulate the stove within cold, snowy type environments. Kerosene. Again, do I do this slide over and over again, try to get your attention? Nah, I don't need to do that. But every once in a while, interject a slide that will ask you what your opinion is to keep you in tune of what's going on. Again, kerosene, this is a worldwide one. Heat output is very good, low cost, flammability is moderate, so you want to assume that, you know what, this might be a great fuel for you to want to be involved with. The advantages: there's no need for insulating stoves from cold or snow. Sounds like my ideal fuel source. But the disadvantage, if you've ever been around kerosene, it just stinks. And if you have any kind of leakage, and now it's inside of your gear, you'd rather bury your stuff. Remain oily if spilled, and then also this does require some kind of priming. So therefore, you have some information about kerosene. Now, what's the advantage of the following? Advantage of butane. What's your response on this? Here's another fuel source. Okay. See what you guys had to say. Again, I like this. You guys have no clue. So I'm talking about some kind of material that most of you don't know much about. Again, if I was to talk to you about something that you do know about, this tells me, you know what, maybe I need to remove this from my lecture in the future, because by notion of you being this major or whatever it is, it's all old hat, or you're being exposed to this in other classes. But I see that that's not the case, so therefore this is a very, very good information for me to lecture on eventually. Again, it can ship on airplanes. Most of you assume that that's not the case. You can't fly with too many things nowadays, so I guess that was an easy one for you. No priming. Heat remains high when the cartridge is low. That's what some of you think, and then also you think it's an excellent source if it's freezing. 50% of you actually believe that. So we'll find out what's going on here. Let's give you a little information on butane. Worldwide. It is worldwide, though there is limited distribution. Heat output is moderate, above freezing. It's extremely poor when it gets cold. So butane is a beautiful fuel source. When it gets cold, you are going to be wishing you had a couple sticks to rub. Cost is extremely high, very high, because you have these certain cartridges that you bring along with you. Flammability is very, very good, it's very high. Advantages: no priming. I mean, you just pop that can on there or whatever you might have as a device, you turn it on, and you got yourself a light. Easy to light, and you can't spill it. It's in these nice self-contained cans. Disadvantages: you must pack out the cartridges. They're non-recyclable. In fact, have you ever seen any of these visuals, these individuals that go up and they do these mountaineering experiences? It's almost sickening to see all these canisters are at base camp, again, because they can't take it up in high altitude in a really, really cold extreme. And it's just, they just leave them there. And it's almost like seeing a junkyard. So it's nasty that you have all these different cans that sit around. People just litter because, again, people don't like to carry them out with them. They can't change some cartridges until they're empty. Again, now you're stuck. I only have, 10 minutes worth of fuel here, but I can't take it out. So therefore, you're stuck with butane. And you must keep above freezing. This is a above freezing need. You can't ship on airplanes. You guys caught that one. And it's poor heat output when the cartridge is low. When you get that thing low, sort of like when you guys had your lighters, remember the old day, you had to shake them and get anything to burn? Well, same thing with fuel when it comes to camping stoves. Propane. Here's another one thrown at you. Availability in the United States and Europe. High output. Heat output is high. Cost is high. Flammability is high as well, so you've got all highs on the propane. Advantages: there is no priming, easy light, can't spill, and can work down to 0 degrees. Now you have an advantage of this fuel over butane. So now I'd like to maybe try to lecture about the idea of, here's some commonalities. What do you remember of the white gas? What do you remember of, for instance, I try to put butane just before propane so they can see the commonalities. And I discussed that, and I talk about disadvantages. Must pack out the cartridges. Again, this is another situation. People don't do this. A lot of people use propane cartridges. Can't ship on airplanes again, same as butane. And these cartridges are heavy, but you've got some extreme pressure inside these. In fact, you guys probably use the one on the very, very top here when you go camping. If you try to boil some catfish or whatever you might do, that's your extent of camping. That's great. For others, though, they have a smaller cartridge. Again, they're still quite heavy compared to other cartridges. Automotive gasoline. is another fuel source for camp stoves. Availability worldwide. Heat output is very high. Cost low to moderate. Flammability very, very high. This is a blow up on you. In fact, I have to admit myself. I worked for Outward Bound for 6 years. This is where I take individuals in the wilderness, and I knew my stuff inside. And I knew all the different types of equipment. I went up to my first job when I graduated from Texas A&M in Arkansas, and they had a bunch of camping equipment they have never used. I mean, this stuff's probably in museums. And I was just like, oh my gosh, look at this stuff. And I picked up this stove, and it was a gas stove. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring this home and get it started. We're going to actually take a trip out next week. I'm going to test my stuff out before I go. Well, in my head, I'm thinking not the old terms. Back in the old days, they referred to as gas. They didn't differentiate. Gas was white gas, not the idea of gasoline. So I had the old unleaded fuel inside there. They're going to start up. Boom! It just blew up. So again, it was not designed for white gas. So anyway, luckily, I did burn my eyebrows and did all that great stuff. But anyway, it's amazing that it's extremely dangerous. Gasoline. Advantages. Easily attainable. It's everywhere, but I'm going to throw at you a lot of disadvantages associated with automobile gasoline. In fact, for a while there, everybody was pushing into changing everything out to get automobile gasoline. Again, instead of buying white gas for, let's say, $3 a half gallon, you might have to be able to get your gasoline for $1 a half gallon. So therefore, everybody was pushing that direction. But there's a lot of disadvantages as well. A very explosive atmosphere. I mean, the fumes is what causes explosion. I mean, again, when you talk about some of these other fuels, you have to light it. This stuff here, you have a lot of problems. Another issue is when I work with a lot of populations, I work with adjudicated youth. I'll see as they will want to cook, and I'm wondering, why do you want to cook? It's not so much that they like to cook, but they like to be around the fumes. These guys have gotten away from their nicotine. They've gotten away from all these other highs. Guess what? I can cook and I can let my valve out a little bit, and when nobody's looking, they get down there and they do a little huffing. So that's another major reason why you may want to put this, even though I didn't put that on here. It's amazing what people do. They'll find seam sealer and they'll sniff it up their nose, and you got to deal with that. But anyway, this is another one that you have to watch out for. Prolonged use may clog your stove. So again, if you're using this, you're going to clog that given stove. Oxygenation within the gas. Typically, like in the winter, they actually change our chemical composition of a given gasoline. Well, if you're buying the gasoline, especially if it still has that winter mixture, try to use it. It actually has these additives that destroys the seals and destroys these little grommets and so forth inside that given stove. So again, that may be a major disadvantage. And then, of course, we brought the toxic fumes. It is very dangerous. Denatured alcohol. This is my last one I'm going to talk about. Denatured alcohol is available in the U.S., Europe, other countries. It's either a gel, solid form, or solid cubes. Typically, you're not talking about is the liquid mass, but some people can even use the liquid mass as well. I've used those as well. Heat output is very, very low. So here's a negative of this. If you're talking about very low heat output, we got cost is very low, which is great. I mean, you guys can go out and buy alcohol for nothing, as you can assume that alcohol is quite inexpensive. Flammability is extremely high. So it can be dangerous as well. Advantages, no priming. My gosh, it just lights right up there. It's really great. In fact, you may even see it if you go around to some of these catering events. They're using some alcohol, denatured alcohol. Spilled fuel evaporates without residue, burns silently, nice, quiet burn, and then also can clean your pores and stubborn zits if needed. Disadvantages. This may tempt someone to put down their bud and not see these people camp and consume some fuel. So that could be one of the disadvantages. Now, I'm going to throw out another slide at you. Here we go. How many liters of white gas? 5 campers taking a 7-day Florida outing in July. For some of you don't have a clue since you came in late. You're just guessing. But you saw this slide before, right? Now, but we still have 60 to 40%. So again, maybe it's because the individuals came in late. You weren't paying attention. Maybe you have some issues with math. This might be something I need to now bring up again at the very end. Talk about how did we come up with this answer? That's some solution. But now what I am going to do is I'm going to do something different. Now I'm going to tell you what the answer is. And we go over this as a response. Why is it 5? Again, why is it 5? 1 liter per person. 1 liter per person for 7 days. Right? So if we have 5, it's 5 liters. Got it? What's that? That's right. And if you don't have the snow, that's why I have it in July, I have it in Florida, so therefore you didn't have to actually identify that. Now, what if I would put in there that it was what is that town in North Dakota? Fargo, North Dakota, and it was July or January. And I can say the snowy condition, I can do whatever I want, but now what would that number be? It'd be 10, because you double it.